So item 3 and 4 on the agenda, so I've got a little bit of just a review of the last council that's just finished. It was elected back in May 2021, which is obviously unusually late because the COVID pandemic disrupted the whole programme. So I've just been through all of the parish magazines for the last 3 years and just tried to pick out the various bits that have happened. And it's actually quite remarkable how much has happened over the last 3 years. And obviously, the big scene-setting thing was COVID. And I'll mention this 2 or 3 times as we go through this. But Simon and Amanda, I think if you rewind and you think about how difficult it was to get back to normality and get things done, you know, the speed at which that you guys got the council back up and running was really quite remarkable, and we very quickly got into getting the project underway and getting the council back on the front foot. So I think that's a huge achievement and well worth noting. As part of that, Amanda recruited Mark into the team, and Robin and Lisa came along and both did a huge amount to get us up and running in those areas. So that's number 1 on my report, the response to COVID, and it was a great success, particularly when you think back on YouTube, what some of the various other things that we saw for other parish councils that had challenges. So that's number 1. So then I was just going to run through a few of the other things that came out of the magazines. The youth opportunities was something that's a bit of a theme running through them. It's something that the parish council has obviously been supporting for a long time and continue to. And interestingly, back in 2021, there was a consultation in collaboration with a secondary school, which really prompted some of the the youth options sponsorship that we did. And the work that they've done with the youngsters, and it was based at Roy Underdown Pavilion. I'm not quite sure how it played out after that, but that was what we reported. We obviously had the various lockdowns, and finally schools went back in 2021, September, just after this council was elected. And then, believe it or not, there was a bit of time for this council where we didn't have a CEMEX planning application actually on the books. That came along in February 2022 when it was first registered, and just a little bit before the Queen's Jubilee, and at the same time that we finally got all of our IT up and running, so we were able to record and broadcast various council activities. Also, then this is now into 2022, so we had the IT bit. Debbie Rolfe retired from the council after a while. And then, of course, at the end of 2022, we had the sad passing of the Queen Elizabeth II and the proclamation of King Charles III. Now, I got dispatched by Simon to go and listen to the proclamation over in Eastleigh, which was really interesting, actually, because what I learned from that process was how important boroughs are in that whole history of how things are organised. And up until that, sorry, Malcolm, but I always thought Eastleigh was this sort of distant, little vague thing, and obviously had a council, and we had to go there from time to time. But it turns out that in precedence, after the king, or as now, that you come down into our space, and you have the Lord Lieutenant of the county, and the next highest one is the mayor of the borough. And so I guess historically that's because where they collected taxes, and Robin Hood came along and sorted it all out and the rest of it. But it was really quite interesting to see how the whole thing played out, and the uniforms that they all get to wear as well. So, but then 2022 was a blisteringly hot summer, and one that sort of weather that we probably need to think about being prepared for. Which is particularly important for us because the guys out and dealing with the grounds, that climate does have a big impact on what they do and when they have to do it. Chris Ayres retired in March 2023, and obviously subsequently passed away later on, which very sadly after 21 years of working for us, which is an awful long time to be helping keep our village looking fantastic. And then also, there's a lot of people dying here. Tony Ryan also surprisingly and sadly died as well, which was just, actually it was a bit of a shock, I think, to all of us around the council. Amanda didn't die, she retired and moved on. And we spent the middle of 2023 working around to recruit Helen, who finally joined us in the middle of 2023, so coming up to a year ago. Not yet a full year, either for Amanda as the clerk. Rewind that. Either for Helen as the clerk or me as the chairman. I obviously still got a lot of practice to do. Sarah Lennis resigned. Sheila also resigned. And then from the estates team, Richard Clark and Lisa also decided to go and look for opportunities elsewhere. Coming into the elections, as we know, Andy and Anita and Rebecca didn't put themselves up for re-election. So that brings us to the end of that cycle. But I think the amount that we've been through as a council, and particularly the amount that Simon and Amanda managed to get in place to get us a platform to move forward, that's a great tribute to everyone involved in that whole process. So as we stand here now, we've got a new council elected. There's 8 of us and 4 vacancies. So anyone who does watch this, who would like to come and join the council, please come to the office and make contact, because we do have 4 vacancies that we would like to fill.
Sorry to interrupt your eloquent. I have to say, having been over to Eastleigh last Thursday for election night, we are not alone. Virtually every parish council in the whole borough has got at least one election, or many of them are actually worse off than we are. And you talk to some of the leaders and movers and shakers in the other parishes, they all got hit with the COVID, the fallout of COVID, equally as badly as us, if not worse. So I think we haven't done bad, and we have, I believe, got some interest in to fill some of the seats possibly. So it's not all doom and gloom.
Yeah. Thank you. So that's the timeline, just a quick review. Other issues that were constant themes through the whole era, obviously Hamble Airfield, which we've talked a lot about, but I think it's worth putting into the minutes and on record what a fantastic job everyone in the village has done. I think the residents group have done a remarkable job at getting a lot of people to actually send in objections. 5,000 objections, that's over 1 for every household that we have in the village, which is fantastic. And particularly with Matthew on their team, the quality of the work that they've done is also extremely high. And I think we'll ask Steve tomorrow for a confirmation, but I think it's very, very unusual to have a situation where the officers in the plan are approving a quarry, and then when the application comes, they've actually rejected it. It's really very rare. So far so good, but as everyone has already articulated, still a lot of work to be done. The conservation area was another topic that's cropped up a number of times, and we know that that's an ongoing conversation, but I don't think we've yet got to any clarity on exactly what Eastleigh expects the conservation area to be about and how it will be consistently and fairly applied. So work done on that, but still, again, some challenges ahead. We obviously had our fantastic success in the Excellence in the Community Engagement Award, And until I read the magazines, I hadn't actually realised that we were also second in the overall award for Village of the Year. And in many ways, I think actually that's as big a success as the hitting the top spot for the communication side of things. But we are very lucky with Michelle and with Claire and her team. I think our magazine and our social media work is excellent. And certainly all the feedback we get is all overwhelmingly positive. I think if we are going to take the challenge of trying to connect with younger people, Facebook, I keep getting told, is not the place to be if you want to talk to young people. So I think we are still got a challenge to try and find out how to use the tools of Instagram and TikTok, and our token young person is shaking her head. We have to try. You can see Simon's desperate to get behind the camera, in front of the camera. But yeah, so great success with the awards, and congratulations again to Michelle and the team. We have a lot of community organisations that do great work in the village. There's a few that I just briefly want to mention. There's the Priory Centre by the church, who've do a lot of stuff through the winters and around Christmas, which we help to support. We've got things like Speedwatch, and we've got the absolutely infamous and extraordinary Carols in the Square, which changed hands, and we sadly saw the last of the Father Graham era a couple of years ago. But again, by reading the magazine, I discovered that actually Carols in the Square actually goes back 30 years. I mean, Ian probably was singing in the first one. Yeah, I mean, that's a hell of a track record, and well worth us continuing to help and sponsor. There's the conservation volunteers who do fantastic work around the village. There's Wet Wheels, there's Good Neighbours, there's the Mara group, which for anyone who doesn't know is a Mercury residents group, which once a year they all get together and do a big tidy up. It's a great idea, and a model that maybe other groups might want to build on. And I think looking forwards, I think the question for us there is, how do we take those great things and A, make sure everyone in the village knows about them all, so everyone can get access to them where they need them, and B, where there are good models like the self-help group at Mara, try and see if there's other areas that might benefit from trying to take the same sort of approach. So those are the flavours of the things that we historically have been supporting and sometimes actually helping to fund. And Citizen Advisory Bureau was another one. So thinking about this with Helen, we were hoping that by this time next year we could maybe formalise that whole aspect a little bit more, get a more frequent dialogue with all of those groups, and look for some sort of recognition event maybe this time next year, just to try and help promote all of those other great things that are going on within Hamble. Meanwhile, back in the office, there's an awful lot going on there. I had no idea until I took over from Simon, despite all of the briefing and the warnings that Simon had given me, and you've seen some of it while I cunningly went away for a few weeks. The amount of stuff that has to get done in the office by these guys is just unbelievable until you get there. And you think it's a small amount of work, and probably each little bit is a small amount of work, but there's a dozen other small things that get in the way of getting that one particular one done. So we've got parking permits, we've got the graves, as well as all of the obvious stuff that goes on there. And things, parking permits and dinghy park are really important for us because we get about half our income from those. And Jess is doing a great job of getting the books sorted out and balancing all of those. And then but nothing ever seems to be simple. There's always some complexity that crops up that you're not expecting. And then even just getting the checks signed off on the bank. There's an awful lot of stuff that we have to do just to keep our head above water. And if we didn't have such a great team looking after us, it would be impossible. Even with really well-run office, it's still an awful lot of work. Not asking for sympathy necessarily, but it's really important that everyone involved in running the council gets the recognition there. So a couple of other things that came out of the office. So the bus service got changed around and the X15 discontinued. And I think in our planning question going forward, what kind of public transport would be useful for Hamble will be a key question, and how it all joins up. The grounds team obviously been busy through all that time, and Alton and Mark are now picking up all of that work. It's pretty clear that there's more work than the two of them alone can handle. In particular, the fact that we have to provide cover at the weekends when we've got sports events going on. And the problem there is that if either of the guys are having to cover the weekends, that means they have time off during the week, which severely limits the amount of our capacity to get work done during the week. So it's probably not a three-man full-time job, but it's more than a two-man full-time job. So we've still got to work out how do we fill in that extra bit at the top there. Mark does a fabulous bit for the magazine on a regular basis, and I think that's one of the highlights that we get some feedback on as well. And again, so anyone who does watch this, if people have time and have relevant experience and would like to do work as part of the team, please do come and talk to us about that. We talked about communications and the great success of communications, and there's a number of times in the magazines over these 3 years where the question of the continuance of the Parish magazine has come up, and I think everyone actually loves having that thing coming through the door, and I don't see that situation changing dramatically or soon. On the flip side, though, we do have our new website, and it's definitely a big step forward from the one we had before. There's an awful lot of content on there that's been carried across, which is, let's say, confusing, and still a lot of work to tidy it all up. But that will get addressed in the fullness of time. Health and well-being is something that crops up a number of times. Citizen Advice Bureau is something that we've supported, and they did come to their routine meetings in the Mercury Hub. I think they clearly weren't overutilised in that role, and how we make sure that everyone has access to those sorts of services going forward is going to be an important question, I think. Sports. So everyone loves to visit Hamble, clearly. We have, on occasion, up to 10 different teams coming and playing football in Hamble. And the atmosphere on our playing fields at the weekend is delightful, particularly when it's all the youngsters playing. So we have a real treasure in our sports facilities. But we do need to look at how we, with the future of how we support that. And in particular, that plays back to the question, which has been also a perennial question through this period, about what we do with Mount Pleasant. So picking up on Mount Pleasant, then obviously there was some work done way back in the early days, which got really overtaken by COVID. We need to refresh that and re-examine it and decide what we can and what we should do with Mount Pleasant and the pavilion there. We have a working party set up. We have some background analysis being done by surveyors. So all of that will come together in the next weeks and months. And we'll hopefully find a way forward with that. On the project front, particularly back in 2021, 2022, antisocial behaviour was a really big issue in the village. And I remember some of my early council meetings there was an awful lot of time and concern about antisocial behaviour. And I think Amanda did a huge amount with the police, and I think our local police should take a lot of credit for really getting on top of that. I'm sure it will come back at some point, but at the moment we don't seem to have we don't hear a lot anyway about a problem with antisocial behaviour. Malcolm, you're going to tell.
Summer's here. They started transferring 8 cars after Westwood Common, so I think it's going to start now because it's the freedom they got now, so I think it will.
Yeah.
Especially Westwood Common.
Well, I think one of the things that I would congratulate Helen on is establishing some really good relationships with all of the other organisations out there, and one of the ones I think will stand us in very good stead is with our local police. So I'm sure we'll do what we can with that one. Coronation Parade was one of the bigger projects undertaken in Hamble. Not universally loved in all aspects, but we certainly have a bit more parking, and it's a bit fresher than it used to be. Farmers markets is something that has been throughout, which I think, even just from hearing from last weekend, still very much welcomed and enjoyed by everyone in the village. With the return to normal business after the pandemic, and with the sad death of the Queen and the coronation of King Charles III, we've ended up with a lot more little gardens, celebration and commemoration gardens around Hamble, all of which have been done by the team, and I think all things to be proud of. Future and Mount Pleasant. Okay, so basically, one final thing to mention. Through that whole period, we made some big steps in getting away from fossil fuels. So where we use diesel, we're now using the fuel, the HVO fuel, which is all from renewable sources. And most of the transport, as everyone knows and loves, is now been upgraded all the way through Sparky 1. And we're now on version 2, Sparky 2. So I think that's a credit to the team as well. So in summary, the council was elected in 2021, and we've through to now 2024, and there have been a huge amount of changes and challenges along the way. Getting things normalised and back on track after COVID was a huge credit to the people involved at that time, and Amanda and Simon particularly grateful for the work that you've done in getting us back to a normal life in Hamble. I think it is easy to underestimate how much energy gets put into just keeping everything sort of normal as we would love it. I mean, Hamble is kept beautifully, and Alton and Mark do a wonderful job, and along with the other people that do stuff out there. But we are very lucky in having people that both do it very well, but also with enjoyment and with passion. And I think that makes Hamble, as it goes a long way to making Hamble the beautiful place it is to live. And then, of course, we have Emma and we have Jess working with Helen in the office. Jess has got our finances sorted out, and it will be plain sailing from now on, I am sure. A little matter of an audit to do next, to get through soon, but I'm sure that will be fine. And Emma's picked up the other activities in the office. So we have a team of 4 people on the ground, plus Helen. That's not enough, and we need to find some more resource to support that. It's not going to be another permanent person, because the bits and pieces come and go, and the type of work varies from time to time as well. So that's a challenge that Michelle is helping Helen try to work through. And hopefully we've now got a really solid foundation that they can build on. So that's the end of my summary of the last 3 years. I think it's still a voyage of discovery, certainly for Helen, I think, because you've said it, certainly for me. I think with the CEMEX situation evolving, hopefully the next 3 years won't be quite as disrupted as the last 3 years have been. So that's the report. Looking ahead to later on this year, next year, clearly we've got the CEMEX issues still on the agenda. We do need to do something about Mount Pleasant. The initial project to refurbish the play park is underway. We have some responses from the contractors.
They're waiting for a schedule of works.
Oh, okay. So we're in dialogue with those with contractors, and hopefully we'll get some capacity to do that. But I think the key thing is that actually there's a few big things that we need to worry about, but we've broken the back of all of the general stuff around the village. So the nature of the project work is going to be different going forward than it has been for the last couple of years. Yeah, I think we've probably covered everything else we need to under that, unless there's anything we need to add, Helen.
The only things that we said prior to the meeting that we wanted to just mention was obviously sports provision, which you have a little bit in sports strategy.
Yeah.
Also preschool provision as well that we want to work with.
Yeah.
The current providers of preschool.
Yeah, just to put on the record, as we look at Mount Pleasant facility, then clearly one of the questions is going to be how we use any building space that's there. It being right next to the junior school, there's obviously a question of if there's any interest in providing some preschool facility up there. As we're standing here in the preschool place that operates in the middle of the village at the moment, very clearly that would have to be a part of a collaboration, and there's certainly no plans to preemptively do anything like that. But it will be one of those questions. As you also say, we know very well what we do to support football, and that's been very successful. Not only is there the football that we support directly on our own playing fields, but the Hamble Football Club. No, the football. Hamble Club Football Club, which is the football club linked to the Hamble Club, just around the corner here. I didn't appreciate until we heard from some of the guys who are doing county national sports planning. That club is really highly recognised and rated. Their commitment to playing with offering facilities for people of all ages, all abilities, all genders, and the quality of their coaching and their facility, that has put them right up at the top of the pile as a potential target for investment for a high quality artificial grass pitch. So again, a little gem in Hamble that I'm sure some people know about, but I don't think we do enough to celebrate. But as you say, then there's the broader question of, we're very successful with supporting football, but are there other sports that actually people in Hamble would also be welcome having access to? So that also will, I think, be something we consider under the umbrella of what do we do in Mount Pleasant. Right, well, we talked about community contributions. I think Helen and I would like to draw up some proposals for some sort of recognition event this time next year. We'll send out the messages if it's all agreed to get people to register and to propose people for anything that we do. And I think the more that we can do as a council to help everyone in Hamble be the best that they can be, then the smarter it is. So that was the community bit, and with no more members of the... sorry, there's one final... So we did have some pre-notice of some questions from members of the public, but they haven't turned up to raise those questions. One of them was about wheelie bins on the high street. One of them just said it was something to do with the beach cafe. And so our proposal will be to pick those up with those individuals. Having said that, I think personally, doing something about the wheelie bins on the high street would be a real success if we can. If sometimes we have more bins than we have people on the high street. It seems a little bit unnecessary the way it happens at the moment.
The only other one was historic buildings. But,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Sorry, yeah. So the one rope. The third question was about one rope walk, but I think we all know where we're at with that. In theory, progress is going to be made on that, but it's up to the Eastleigh enforcement people. If that happens, we're in good shape. I think there's a degree of low expectations of exactly what's going to happen with that. So keep watching, I think, is that one. Any questions? Any other business? Anyone?